From songs based around dreams that turned out to be real, and re-recording their entire album due to a certain band's other record, we are here to discuss this monumental effort from the early 2000s that I'm pretty sure left a massive impact on your life as much as it did mine. So let's discuss the Killers album Hot Fuss for its 20th anniversary, and of course the focus for today's episode of Retro Reviews. I knew a Jenny once. She too was a friend. Not in the same way as the subject matter of that song, which seems to be of course a part of the Killers' apt murder trilogy of tunes, taking a kind of White Lies vibe with its lyrics, which to be perfectly honest, I never really paid attention to for the longest of times, due to that amazing bass line serving as a massive distraction. Seriously, take a bow, Stomer. You deserve it for unleashing this beast right from the opening gates. No wonder the Killers made such a big splash when their debut album Hot Fuss dropped 20 years ago and fell right in place in so many circles of music, and of course the focus of this episode. And we will discuss the history of the album, singles, deep cuts, my thoughts on the record, and a rating. So let's get into this. You know what's an interesting fact about the Killers? They are the most successful religious group in history.
Myrrh album.
Yeah, let that one sink in for a moment and let the rage subside, because outside of religious charts, they are successful as hell. I mean, they don't overtly sing sappy or preachy tunes about God or whatnot, but they don't hide their modesty either. Another fun fact about this album: it wasn't their first recording. And I don't mean that in the sense of they had a demo out first. In fact, they re-recorded this album after throwing it all out, except for one song.
No. Mother douchebags. Did it again.
And I'll mention which one later on in this episode. The band was formed in 2002 after Flowers saw an advert in the newspaper looking for band members by Dave Koenig. And of course they took their band name from a fictitious band that appeared in the video clip for a New Order song, Crystal. It's probably best that the group were formed in Vegas around this time, as their sound served as a stark comparison to the whole new metal and punk bands that were already on the scenes, and introduced that British indie rock sound that was fast becoming a mainstream success, especially around about this time. And of course they fused it with their kind of synth pop elements. The logo for the band was also an homage to Elvis, but unlike the Clash, who did it from a record from many years ago, this was actually taken from one that hit the charts around about 2002-ish. It was from the Best of Elvis compilation record, and they loved that marquee design and of course decided to run with it, fusing it into their logo, which has been used ever since. Of course it seems fitting that a band from Vegas would take cues from one of Las Vegas's biggest staple acts, and that's in between when he didn't shoot TV screens, of course. Eventually the band recorded a 5-song demo that would eventually make its way across the transatlantic into the hands of Ben Derling, who worked with Lizard King Records, and despite never meeting the band, they offered them a contract for UK distribution based upon their impression of that demo, which eventually would spawn the record Hot Fuss. The album was recorded with Jeff Saltzman as producer in California in 2003 and features a picture on the cover by Matthias Klammer from his 2000 collection, and was taken in the southern region of Beijing. The characters on the building translate to construction material development, but in my mind it says this album is awesome. This album saw the band release 4 singles, with Mr. Brightside in September of 2003, Somebody Told Me in the following year, All These Things That I've Done, and Smile Like You Mean It in 2005. There's no better way to kickstart your career than to blow people's minds with your first single, and that's precisely what the Killers did right here. Talk about leaving your mark in the music industry. Hell, Mr. Brightside is one of the most anthemic songs produced this side of the millennium. It is unfortunate that the lyrics are taken from real events. Yes, this song is about being cheated on, and is taken directly out of the life story of Flowers in a turn of a bizarre events. The story goes that Flowers was awoken in his sleep by a bad feeling and went down to his local, the Anchor pub, only to find his girlfriend cheating on him with another man. I guess the song's lyrics about now I'm falling asleep and she's calling a cab take on a whole new meaning once you know this. You know, I never knew the story behind this song, and I'll have to admit the vivid imagery painted by these words were always intriguing to me, but upon hearing the facts behind it, really puts a new light on this big tune. In fact, I'm guessing that due to the sad and personal connection to this song, that it even made the cut to the album. Back in the early days of when this record was put into demo stages, the band actually went down to a record store to purchase the new album by The Strokes called Is This It? And when they put it on in their car, to them that record just sounded so perfect, and theirs so crap. In an effort that mirrors Brian Wilson and his actions, Brandon Flowers would become so depressed and end up throwing away all of what they had recorded at the time, with the only exception being to, well, this song, Mr. Brightside. So when you think about it, the Killers have a piece of lost media out there, a potential rare and unheard of demo album that has potentially never seen the light of day, and that's probably just sitting in the middle of a garbage dump in the Philippines.
One is your locker, the other is a garbage dump in the Philippines.
It shouldn't come to anyone else's surprise that this tune spent 260 non-consecutive weeks in the charts as of April of 2021. What might surprise people is that the song initially lasted 4 weeks in the UK Top 100 upon its initial release, but due to the song's catchy nature, it would become a staple in school events like graduations, and even had the Manchester fans singing a rendition of this to the soccer player Norman Whiteside. In fact, in my home country, the Killers would perform live at the AFL Grand Final, with one of the players even joining the band on stage to sing this song after the match had finished, which also seems fair considering that one of our sports commentators, Gerard Watley, gave a reading of it live on air in a spoken word method. I was going to cut to this section, but no video of it exists anymore. Well, that's awkward. I guess it falls under the trust me bro category, but it did happen. This song is perhaps going to go down in history as our generation's Stairway to Heaven, as in this tune is a timeless classic that always gets a play in whatever scenario, and everyone knows the lyrics to it. Its lyrics are relatable to those who have been cheated on and tell a positive story about looking forward to tomorrow and being that Mr. Brightside. That is why this song has persisted beyond the unusual time frame for other tunes of this era, and has had over 2 billion streams on Spotify. Its positivity and amazing signature intro guitar riff is of course something that everyone knows. And of course the last cherry on top of all of this, the song has taken over Oasis's Wonderwall, becoming the UK's biggest selling single never to reach number 1. Wait, Wonderwall never made it to number 1? This song is not about a unique theme in the musical world. It is, after all, based around being a young guy trying to pick up girls. Songs about young lust are a dime a dozen, and can often be forgettable, especially given the slew of lyrically similar concepts, but somebody told me it has the distinction of having a solid rhythm section with a great driving bass hook that doesn't quite take the limelight from its tune. Instead, it slashes with surgical precision like a Dexter holding a knife. You know, I always thought that a great callback to the song would have been its inclusion on a best of album by the band as the 18th track. But with the decline of physical media, I don't exactly see this happening except in my dreams. Hey, if you know, you know. Another section to point out is, and always when it comes to the Killers, is the fantastic bass line. And a lot of praise goes to Brandon and Dave, but damn do Mark and Ronnie do a fantastic job in the rhythm section. And that is what is the highlight for this tune. A raw and powerful danceable tune that taps into a bit of David Bowie meets Pulp, and does wonders to really liven up any nightclub which plays this song. It's no surprise that the song is about youth and high amounts of testosterone soaked nightclubs, and holy shit does it remind me of going out on the scene when I was a fresh-faced 18-year-old naive lad with more libido and whiskey than brains. Comment below if this was also the song that you listen to in clubs. God damn it, I'm getting old. Again, like most songs on this album, the song is an introspective piece about growing up and moving on from the past, which is a bit of a returning motif on this record, of course. Fun fact, but there were 2 video clips for this album, with one featuring the band walking down the streets of London, and the other, of course, has the band as cowboys being attacked by women wearing next to nothing. Was that a clickbait title card option? Nah, I'll take the higher road here. Still, I think I know which video clip that I'll go with. Eeny, meeny, miny, that one. According to the band, the bass line is a complete rip-off from the David Bowie song Slow Burn. Huh, now that's a new fact that I didn't know of. This song is often played as the closer song during the encores, and is made better when the crowd sings along with the line. Literal chills. Goddamn, this synth riff hits hard, and I usually always hate synth rock, but somehow the Killers tread a fine line here while simultaneously playing off a nostalgic factor by utilising the minor keys in perfection. Yes, if you've ever wondered why this song hits in just the right spot, it's mostly to do with the music. Also, its poignant lyrics relate back to the breakup mentioned earlier on Mr. Brightside, so I guess this record is kinda like the 5 stages of grief as brought to you by the Killers. This song was a bit of a sleeper hit when it was released nearly a year after the album's release, and I guess this really helped the band with their continued success. Guess it's no surprise that this is one of the last singles from this record, because the song itself has a more restrained and down-tempo feel compared with the rest of the band's previous hits, which are otherwise pretty upbeat, and is awash with some soaring new wave synthesizers and killer guitars. It's a different sound compared to the rest of the album, but it's like a party that is ending kind of tune. It winds us down, which is quite the contrast on this album's track list as the follow-up to Mr. Brightside, but hey, a perfect, well-balanced pairing in my opinion. We've had the big crashing upbeat songs, now it's time to rein in the energy and bring you the emotion of moving on in a world that won't stand still. You know what? There really aren't too many deep cuts on this album. All the singles are very solid for this record, but I guess since we are here, we're going to be doing this anyway. So I've got to mention the most obvious song, and of course one of them from my picks. The first and most obvious one is of course Jenny Was a Friend of Mine, and is easily my favourite bass line in the band's plethora of bassy goodness. This song is part of the Murder trilogy the band wrote, and chronologically serves as the last part of the trio, which is odd considering that this is the first song on the album, and the second part of the song was also on the same album with Midnight Show, and spoiler alert by the way, it's not one of the other choices for a deep cut. The first part of the Murder trilogy would surface 3 years later on Leave the Bourbon on the Shelf off their B-sides album Sawdust, due to the song I guess not fitting quite right, but enough Star Wars prequel and sequel trilogies that even George Lucas can't follow. Let's get into the song, and trust me, this wormhole goes real deep. Jenny Was a Friend of Mine is based on the real events of the murder of Jenny Levin, who was found murdered in New York Central Park in 1986 due to strangulation, which quickly saw Robert Chambers, who was the boyfriend to actress Alex Kapp briefly around about this time. Chambers' story that he gave to the police would change several times over the course of the investigation, and police focused on him being the main suspect for this case, and it was a case for the ages. Initially there was denial, and of course stories of how he got his scratch marks on his face from his cat, until it was confirmed that his cat had been actually declawed, which I guess also put him as the prime suspect of the case around about this time. Chambers was the one who was also maintaining innocence, stating that he was receiving an assault by the female, which was brought up in the court case and as a point of interest, as a first in over 8,000 cases from the past 10 years. There was even a bizarre moment in court when Robert was given a Barbie and twisted its head off, stating, "Whoops, I guess I killed it." One of the people to give a character reference to his defense was his godfather, the Archbishop Theodore Edgar McCarrick. But he was defrocked in 2019, and I'm pretty sure you guys can use your imagination as to what kind of charges were being brought forward to him. Although the jury failed to reach a verdict after a 9-day deliberation, he did accept a plea bargain admitting to first-degree manslaughter. This series of events was also the inspiration for several TV criminal shows such as Preppy Murderer, and this story would pop up twice in Law and Order. The character Adam Denzel? The character Adam Gunzel from Oz was also based off Robert, and Chambers is also mentioned in the novel American Psycho, when Patrick Bateman states that he wants to start a defense fund for him. In fact, in the world of music, the Killers weren't the only ones to write music about this person, as Sonic Youth had done so for their 1988 record for the song Terminator Jr. So yeah, that's the rabbit hole done. The other deep cut is Believe Me Natalie, because it's an awesome and preppy tune that has a great build-up. Both of these are just amazing songs. It doesn't get any more iconic for an early 2000s album other than Hot Fuss, and not just for its music, but also its album cover. What a great picture that is, so simplistic, yet would go on to be so distinguished. Just look at this simple skyline with its blue hues only broken apart by the building of a similar shade, and their red neon signage for contrast. I mean, amazing. I guess by contrast we can see the band's main source of influence with the Strokes is this It, and its highly seductive album cover. Both so minimal, and both would take the indie world on by storm, grab the scene and launch it into the limelight again. Maybe it's unfair to lump the bands together into that scene, but hey, whatever. They were, and it worked, and it was much to their favour too. Arguably, the band have fallen into the trap of never living up to the standard they set with their debut album, and possibly Weezered themselves, but I'm sure people would argue that Sam's Town was a worthy follow-up. Hell, I would even say that their last album, Pressure Machine, was their strongest record put out to date, even if it was vastly different to their debut effort. But for all the right reasons as well. It's actually quite awesome to see a band that has progressed their music in a forward direction and made it not suck. Looking at you, Arctic Monkeys. Seriously, what were you guys smoking when you made the car? Anyway, I loved Pressure Machine, and I love Hot Fuss. There are of course arguments about how hit and miss the band have been in between, but overall I'd say that they have been on top of things. When this album was released back in 2004, it received mostly favourable reviews, with AllMusic giving it a score of 4.5 out of 5, Alternative Press giving a 4 out of 5, Blender a 4 out of 5, Entertainment Weekly a C, The Independent giving a perfect score of a 5 out of 5, NME giving a score of 7 out of 10, Pitchfork a 5.2 out of 10, Q a 3 out of 10, Rolling Stone a 3.5 out of 4, and Spin giving the record a 3.5 out of 5. Over at Rachel Music, the album sits at a score of 3.46 from 16,000 reviews, and is currently the highest rated record from the band. As for me, I would give this album a score of 12.5 million chilies on the spicy scale, with my favourite tracks being Jenny Was a Friend of Mine, Mr. Brightside, Smile Like You Mean It, and Somebody Told Me. You know, as far as this album goes, it does stand to be one of those iconic debut releases that would define the band for their career, and still of course it stands as their best effort release to date. However, this record doesn't get mentioned in the same sentence as similar efforts such as Weezer's Blue album, when it does stand shoulder to shoulder with that album. I'm not saying that anything they've done since has been pure shithouse, and I've already given you my thoughts on Pressure Machine and Sam's Town. They are of course great accomplishments, but it's just no Hot Fuss. Of course, with all the praise, we must point out its flaws, and the most glaring issue when it comes to this record is the fact that after about the halfway point in the album, it takes a massive dip in quality, and it's clear from Andy You're a Star onwards, even the fans don't particularly care for the album. I get it, in the day and age of physical media, you had to put the solid hits up front, because this was the important sections for you to hear, and the good stuff when you could listen to these records in store, as samples of course, but it does show in the final product. Still, I wouldn't change the track listing, as this album always feels like a great record to play, except for that last song.
It's time to stop! It's time to stop, okay?
Yeah, we get it, the record's coming to a close, and this was clearly a last minute addition to the album, but it feels like such a dumb and forced song that was put in there at the very last minute. Regardless, there will always be this pit of nostalgia whenever I play this record, and I play this record often. If you've enjoyed this content, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to us, and stay notified for future music related content, because it keeps our manager happy at the end of the day. We are also on Discord, Instagram, Facebook, and all those other social platforms platforms if you want to check us out. As always, people, you have a great day and stay spicy.